Right now, we are headed to the actual murder rocks where Alfie Bolin ambushed and terrorized his victims 150 years ago. This dirt road will take us about 1.5 miles from the location, and from there, we'll have to hike in the rest of the way. And you know, it's kind of funny. We're only about 5 miles from Midwest tourist destination Branson, Missouri. 9 million people flock here each year to vacation. We've got more theater seats than all of Broadway. But when you look back into history, the original settlers here, they were a tough and rugged bunch, but their lives were often tragic.
Shake and fist those train robbers out there, and I mean call them to ugly.
All right, now in case y'all haven't figured it out yet, we are the notorious Bolin gang. I'm Alfie Bolin, this is my sister Ralphie, and what we have here is a stick-up. Come on, we got a train to rob. Okay. Now look here, I'm gonna rob these folks back here in the back.
Yeah.
We'll let you have all these high rollers up here in the front.
High rollers?
Now, once you get the gold, silver, copper, dollar.
Dozens upon dozens of Alfie Bolins have been robbing the Frisco line several times a day through the years at Silver Dollar City ever since the theme park opened up in the 1960s. Bolin holds the passengers up for their valuables, but is a lovable comedic villain who garners laughs from his audience throughout the entire skit with his fictitious sidekick, Ralphie Bolin. The Silver Dollar City Alfie Bolin is a harmless bandit inspired by actual Ozarks Civil War era history. The real Alfie Bolin, however, is quite different than the theme park character. The real Alfie Bolin is nothing less than pure evil.
Rumor has it that Alfie Bolin's treasure from all of those robberies have never been found. He is supposedly hidden near the cave out by Murder Rock. I know the locals to this day are still trying to find it.
I think he murdered quite a few people, even some children, as legend has it.
He shot an 80-year-old man in the back for his horse. I heard he killed like 20 people.
20 people.
30 people.
He killed 30 people.
I mean, how can anybody be like that? Manson, maybe?
He'd straight up kill them. Them kids, them babies. Nothing. Didn't bug him a bit.
What kind of human being? He's not a human. He couldn't have been.
At the local library in Joplin, Missouri, I interviewed an independent researcher who has blogged about the topic of Alfie Bolin on 4 different occasions. The interview went far different than I expected. We spent an hour together talking, and almost immediately I realized we were not here to talk about urban legend or folklore, but something of skepticism and matter of fact. This discussion was on the man, not the myth, nor the legend.
The thing that makes Alfie Bolin a bad dude is partly because he really was a bad dude. There's no doubt that he did kill a lot of people, or some people. It depends on what you mean by a lot. It's no doubt that he was a murderer and a robber. But there's also, I think, the legendary part of it makes him, he is more of a notorious figure in legend probably than he was in real life, but I'm not saying he was not notorious in real life as well. He killed people, he robbed people. The more I researched it, the more I realized that almost everything we know about Alfie Bolin, or supposedly know about Alfie Bolin, is really more just legend that's been handed down, that is not based on what we call primary sources, you know, stuff that was written at the time he was still alive or at the time when he got killed. There are a few sources like that, but very few. So I think a lot of the stuff that has been written about him is exaggerated, if not downright untrue. You know, for instance, supposedly he killed up 30 or 40 people or more. I think that's probably highly exaggerated. It may be that he and people associated with him killed that many people, but I doubt that Alf Bolin by himself killed 30 or 40 people. If he were that notorious, he would have been more noted during his own time. The point is that there's a lot of stuff about Alf Bolin that I kind of take with a grain of salt. I'm not saying that some of it didn't happen. All I'm saying is I don't think all of it happened.
We're heading out to see the murder rocks right now, and it's pretty wild to think that these trails right here are some of the same trails Alfie Bolin and his bushwhackers used 150 years ago. And here we are today. Our first stop along the way is going to be a cave said to have been used by Alfie Bolin and his gang. And his treasure is said to have been buried near there somewhere. The legend has it, it's never been found. Save some time, we decided to go off trail. This underbrush has been pretty thick though, so it's been a little bit difficult. We're gonna keep moving though. Outlaws loved using caves as a cool resting place and hideout, and it's not hard to believe that Alfie Bolin used this very cave right here, with murder rocks being just through those woods.
There's been a lot of stories about Alfie Bolin, and some of them are true, some of them are not true, some of them we're trying to prove. Basically what we know about Alfie Bolin is that he was a young man living in the area. He was not a teenager, he wasn't this real young guy. He was in his probably mid-20s, the Civil War broke out. He lived up around the Hootentown area in Christian County with his mom and brothers and sisters. When the war broke out, most of his neighbors were Union, but his family had come from Kentucky and they were siding with the Confederacy. Some of the Union soldiers came in and injured his family, and he took to the hills hiding out, and he was going to get back at all of them. And that's what he did, and he kind of turned into a terror of the area during the Civil War, and there was a bounty put out on his head. A lady that lived down here on J Highway, not far from Murder Rocks, lured him into her home at the request of the Union Army stationed in Ozark because her husband had been captured, and a Union soldier by the name of Zach Thomas was there. When Bolin came in, he picked up a coulter, like a fireplace poker, and hit him upside the head, killing him, and took his body to Forsyth where they cut his head off, and then took the head in a gunny sack up to Ozark to give it to the Union Army that was stationed there. We believe that the reason that they went on ahead and cut his head off is it was a long trip by horseback, and you didn't want the entire body. Some of his gang members might have seen you, so it was easier to remove the head and put it in a sack so nobody really knew what you were doing. And one of the legends surrounding Alfie Bolin is that the head was placed on a pole and left at Ozark, and that people would come and throw things at it. And then the legend goes on that the last that anybody saw of it, wild hogs had gotten it, it had knocked it down and was rooting it down the street, and nobody ever saw it again. Don't know if that's true. I think that's just, part of the legend, but I'm sure that the head was displayed at least for a time so people would know. There's also the legend, or the story, I guess I should say, that a photographer was brought in from Nixa, is what I was told, to photograph the head of Alf Bolin so they could prove he was really dead. This photograph of what is supposed to be Alf Bolin's head was given to me by the former mayor of Ozarks several years ago. And don't know if it is actually his head. It's very difficult to make out. Don't know if it was part of the legend or if it is something that is accurate.
The death of Bolin brought widespread joy and relief from town to town all across the Ozark Mountains because the reign of terror in the land came to a final end in 1863. A popular quote goes, "The only good thing about Alfie Bolin was his death." Fast forward 119 years later to May 15, 1982, that same jubilation and relief was reborn once more for the first and only Alfie Bolin Day in the town of Forsyth, Missouri. People came in costume and paraded the streets in celebration of the long-dead outlaw. There was square dancing in the street, games, and food, but the highlight of the day was the wedding of two young locals, Holly Renee's son and Johnny Lee Chambers. This is Murder Rock. A river of innocent blood once flowed here at the hands of a man who used to snake through the mountain trails, preying on the weak and unsuspecting. The rocks have been washed clean by rain and time, but the dark aura still looms. You can feel it. It's in the stale, heavy air. This is the crime scene, and Alf Bolin is the killer, a monster of his time. But at the end of the day, Alfie Bolin was just a man. But he was a man with a heart full of hate. What's more dangerous on earth than that? His evilness lurks, and it rewrites history from the grave. Maybe he was just a man, but now he's a ghost. He haunts these woods. His legend never died. Alf Bolin is alive and well in the Ozarks through urban legend. Alfie lives on. The stories keep him right here at the rocks, watching, waiting.
Leave me alone!
Forever.